Welcome to another Aziz podcast. Today we're talking about sustainable leadership, how leaders can perform at their best while staying resilient, human, and socially conscious. And once again, I'm delighted to be joined by two incredible coaches, Caroline Hughes and Jeremy Keeley, and they bring their own unique perspectives on this topic. So let's meet them. Caroline, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Khaled. So I'm a coach based in Ireland. I've had a hugely successful corporate career, including being the global director of leadership development in a Fortune 500. And these days, I mostly work with leaders at that intersection between what got me here to what really would be valuable for them for the next step in their career and their effectiveness.
Jeremy?
Thank you, Karen. Facilitator, a developmental facilitator. So I work with teams and individuals on how they develop themselves as leaders and as individuals, actually. Also an executive coach. I've been doing this work since about 91 in various guises. I mean, I just absolutely love working with people, helping them to be the best they can be.
I'll say fairer than that. So what we're going to do today is explore practical ways that leaders can stay grounded, avoid burnout, and lead in a way that benefits both their people and the organization they work for. Now, when we talk about sustainability, it's usually in environmental terms these days, but what does it actually mean for commercial leaders who are personally invested in their business and in the way they lead and manage their energy? So Caroline, kick us off.
This very much speaks kind of to my personal mission because when I set up as an executive coach, I was really determined to change the conversation about what it means to lead. Because I think very often today we get caught up in success being firstly somebody else's definition. It's driven by an external stakeholder, a market share, etc., without actually taking stock of what does success mean for me as a leader? What is the legacy that I want to leave? And what is the energy that I need to sustain my performance over time? Because a lot of people look at, you're as good as your last game or success is in the rear view mirror. And these kind of are the narratives that actually ebb away at sustainable career over time. So that's kind of how I see it. Do I have the energy in the tank to fulfill the mission that I'm on and deliver with and through others? And I think that last part is the key to sustainable leadership. Because if you're leading a team, well, then there's little point in you doing everything yourself. And a lot of leaders actually fail to kind of really comprehend what that truly means because we get caught up in the, well, I'll be quicker doing it myself, or I know how to do that, therefore I'm the best person. So a lot of sustainable leadership kind of addresses those underlying beliefs and narratives that we hold that will actually get in the way of long-term success.
Jeremy?
Thank you. I agree completely. I think the thing about systems and organizational systems is one can very quickly get caught up in results and actions. So KPIs, plans, etc. And what happens if we're not careful is leaders find themselves, when they're not getting the results they want, they find themselves just trying harder or even working smarter. And that gets huge amounts of stress. Instead, really good sustainable leaders, and it's related, by the way, to sustainability in its bigger sense as well. They focus much more on the impact they want to have. They focus much more on the meaning that both for them in their work and the meaning that the people that work for them have in their work, and the possibilities that can be created and the relationships that are needed to make things happen. And when things aren't happening, instead of going back to, well, what didn't we do? They go back to who really cares about this? What do I really care about? What kind of relationships are needed in order to make this work? And that makes it much more sustainable. The other thing is of course, leaders are building future leaders. I mean, the sustainability of the leadership in organizations, if you like, and in systems requires them to build the leaders underneath them to take over for them in due course.
That often gets forgotten, doesn't it? Because a lot of people get to the point at which their business wants to invest in them having a coach. They get there on the basis of their technical ability rather than what I call club ability. And I think what we've seen a lot of is people saying, "Well, I'm so busy. People just bring me all this stuff to fix," and I just say, "Well, they're basically putting their monkey on your lawn, and you've got to quietly and with love, as we talked about in a previous podcast, that you've got to push back." and actually empower them. When you do that, you find out a number of things. Firstly, it's amazing how good they are because they actually are good. Secondly, it's amazing if you get the delegation right, and that's a big if, and we do a lot of work around how you delegate successfully, as I'm sure you guys do. But if you do that, you've got more time to work on the bigger picture and infilling, so that if they did want to promote you, I often say this is the great motivator. If they did want to promote you, then they wouldn't have any problem about replacing you. So that's your job, to make sure there is somebody who can fill in behind you, because then that's one other reason not to promote you, you've just done away with, because there is somebody there. So it's interesting stuff, but people, again, they're under pressure all the time. Other ways in which people can create more time for themselves. What do you recommend to your clients? Caroline? Well, or Caroline, whatever.
Well, I kind of want to come back to the point of the go-to person.
Yeah.
When I hear that, it's probably the first big red flag, because the go-to person very often is putting way too many chips in the bowl on the side of the career and the need to be the person who answers all of the questions. So in effect, they become kind of the red light at the traffic light, rather than becoming the equivalent of the roundabout, to redirect the traffic to the relevant places. And I think if you're the go-to person, that the idea of carving out time for yourself simply doesn't exist. It might be cycling to work instead of driving. That might be the height of it. And in fact, I've a client for whom that is exactly how he would define it. And everybody around him is saying, look, you need to step back. And he's looking at this work stack of a variety of tasks which should not be sitting at his desk as an executive team member. And you've a team of people saying, you're not fully utilizing us. So we're now not as interested in being in the office every single day. We're not as motivated to kind of come together on common goal. And there's kind of a narrative of disempowerment beginning to come in. So I think that the go-to people really need to go to themselves, to listen to other people, firstly, around how do they sustain their performance in the conversation they need to be in, rather than the one they want to be in.
And Jeremy,
And I think that's the first kind of distinction.
Yes. And Jeremy, that leads us nicely on to self-leadership, leading yourself into a position. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, and including self-coaching, of course.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, if I just add to this, if we just understand the world of organisations, so often in organisations people think that they've got to add value and they've got to demonstrate that value, and that they've got to be unique, and the world's got to depend on them at some level. And that, of course, when you get into sustainable leadership, is just, to build on what you just said, Caroline, it's just not the case. I mean, it's, in fact, the more that you can help other people to really add value in the organisation, then you're going to be much better off. So that for me is the start of this. But for me, the very first thing is awareness. For me, it goes everywhere. So awareness of myself, awareness of my habitual reactions, awareness of my motivations, awareness of my purpose or not, empathy, awareness of the other people I'm leading, and then contextual awareness. And so often you find leaders are so busy doing this, they're not looking here. They're not thinking, actually, the world is changing around me. And by God, look what's happened in the last 9 months. I mean, it can be at some level a different world altogether. So the kind of, if you build that awareness of self, empathy, and then you know when you're going off track or not, and then refocus on your purpose and your meaning, so on your direction, which then leaves you to what are the resources available to you, and rather than resources that are not available to you, because so often stress in leadership comes from, I haven't got this or I haven't got that, and it's useless. It's a waste of time because you haven't got it anyway. So rather focus on the things that you've got, the strengths you've got, the experience you've got, the relationships you've got, all of those things that helps then embed you as a much more empowered, enabled self-leader, if you will, and then when at that point in time you can go, okay, so I've been through this process, what do I want to be ready for the next time? So in other words, a preparedness. So next time I have to rely on myself, what do I want to be able to rely on that I couldn't rely on myself this time? So a learning frame. And then lastly for me, it's the sense of possibility. What choices Really powerful leaders to me, they're constantly looking at what choices have I got? What possibilities are here available to me, rather than I have to do this or I have to do that, or so a compulsion or a habitual reaction in a certain way. In other words, not giving myself any choice. I hope that helps answer the question. But for me, that's what self-leadership's about.
But let's just move on from that, because there will be people watching this, particularly in this year, 2020. It's such an uncertain year for many people in business. Markets are moving, politics are getting in the way, it would appear, of everything, rather than being the servants of the people who have elected the politicians. It's really tough out there. You don't know what's coming down the track next. Caroline, if somebody feels they're on the edge of burnout, and we do get clients like that, I just need somebody to talk to. What do you say to them? What kind of things can you do? I mean, I know you've got to listen to them, but what's your go-to technique for saying, let's stop you burning out here?
Well, very often in that situation, the first thing we do is we look at where are they spending their time, and we take it really simple. Even though these are executives with very long job titles and big senses of responsibility, the first thing I find when somebody is on the brink of burnout is that sense of perspective goes. And it feels like if I don't do it, nobody will. So, first thing we do, we take a clean page, might be a very big one, we create 3 columns. What is the work that I must do? And must is the important word. Second column, what is the work that others can do? And we might have in brackets underneath with support, with mentorship, right? Close brackets. And third column, and the most important column, what is the work that if I didn't do, nobody would notice?
Yeah.
Because that helps to rebalance the conversation around, okay, you only have so much energy available, you only have so many hours in the day available. So let's first step ensure that you are spending your most valuable energy in the results that really matter, in the areas that really matter. Because I think this is one of the things senior leaders in particular suffer with. Because very often, because of their title and their own role, they're sponsors of projects, are people who are brought in to bring legitimacy to particular conversations that might otherwise be difficult. And then there's the work that they themselves need to lead and deliver upon. So sometimes it becomes like a stew. Yeah, and that was what happened to me. I mean, I had quite a severe burnout in 2020. And it was that sense of nobody can do this but me, which is quite a dangerous narrative to have going on. So that's where I start on, let's get perspective, let's understand exactly what's on the desk, let's look at your diary. Do you need to be in that meeting? Do you need to have somebody else go? Can you go and open it and be a figurehead and let them get on with it, and have other technology and tools keep you more informed than necessarily having to spend your time? So I tend to start from there, because I find that that's a nice gateway into some of the deeper beliefs and assumptions and narratives that they're making at a personal level around the why behind that. But that can feel too scary a topic at the very beginning.
I sometimes offer clients in that situation a holy grail, which is you want to get to the point where you are only doing the things that only you can do.
That's right.
It's as simple as that. Jeremy, anything else to add?
Yeah, thank you. I will sometimes use what's the worst that can happen now.
Yeah.
And because I think that helps people to realize actually probably the worst thing is I burn out, rather than this doesn't get done. The other thing then for me is what's really needed in this organization. Let's just talk about, forget about you, forget about, using what's really needed. And then maybe some appreciative inquiry, when specifically have you been best at this? Let's revisit that for a moment, because it changes the brain chemistry. And the other thing for me often is a use of solutions focus, the idea that you're caught up in the problem and we can keep analyzing the problem, and all that happens is your mindset just keeps getting embedded in the problem. But let's just pretend for one moment you walk out that door and then solved. How would you know? What would be happening? How would you be feeling? How would others be feeling? What were the stories being told? What tangible results? And let's work from there. So where are you out of 10? And if you're 3, why is it not 0? And start from there. And then what would one step higher look like? Sort of a solutions focused process, which gets them thinking from the mindset of the solution rather than staying embedded in the mindset of the problem. But of course, they've got to be capable of doing this. And sometimes it's just providing them some really loving space in which they just dump on you for a while.
Yeah.
And without judgment. I mean, that's the thing. So often they feel judged, or they feel weak, or they feel, and actually if you just say, look, just talk to me about it. Let's just allow yourself complete freedom to go, to have a really good moan, even a really good cry. I've got a handkerchief in my left hand pocket, which is always a clean handkerchief. It's the nature of the beast. And you would be amazed how many times people just allow themselves just to let it go.
Yeah. I mean, so much people we're talking about on the brink of burnout, but what are the early signs? Anything people could just think about? Early signs of burnout. Bit of just things that might happen. You think, hang on a minute, you're going to think about that. Any thoughts on that, Jeremy?
Well, the very first thing for me that comes to my mind is I've lost touch with what's really important. I notice that in myself. I'm caught up in come back to what I said earlier, trying harder and working smarter rather than allowing myself just to step back. There's also quite often you hear people judging themselves and blaming themselves or blaming others, getting caught up in regret and shame and retribution and blame rather than clarity and curiosity and courage. And if you can kind of try and help them to move towards, okay, let's just get really clear for a moment where you are. But that kind of you get that grungy feeling down here, if you like, about God, it's all God, it's awful, and also sometimes just that negative view rather than they lose their optimism, they lose their sense of, as I think, Caroline, you're absolutely right, they lose their sense of perspective. That for me is often the sign of the early sign of burnout.
We have a colleague coach who does a lot of work for Aziz, and he specializes in stress, and he talks about concepts of awfulization or catastrophization. If you find yourself saying, this is awful, then that's an early indicator. He has the other one, which he calls masturbation, to much amusement. And masturbation is, this must be done now.
Yes.
And actually, there's not much that usually needs to be done instantly, is there not? All right. Well, we've gone on a slightly negative territory there. Let's get a bit more positive to finish up this podcast. So, some hints and tips around how you can embed behaviors. What behaviors will actually work and keep you on the sustainable path? Is it short walks? Don't sit at your desk for more than an hour or two, whatever it might be. I mean, we all get this stuff around how we can stay fitter and so on and so forth. It's not always practical, of course, but some things that work. Caroline.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 3. The first one is make a commitment to someone else about something you're going to do together. I often think sometimes men have an advantage over women, particularly who golf all of the time, where that's like social.
Yes.
And there's a commitment to 7 a.m. on a Saturday or.
It's vital. Clients tell me that I'm not a golfer, but clients tell me golf is absolutely vital. Industry would fall apart without it. I'm not sure that's right.
Yes.
That's what they say.
I'm not sure it's up there as, as important as other things. But what I like about people who golf is they tend to make a commitment that is a non-negotiable on a regular basis. And I think whatever it is for you, whether it's golf, tennis, walking the pier, and with somebody else kind of helps to keep you accountable, because it's too easy to give in to the moment of, oh no, this is very important and I must stay and get it work. And the second thing that I would say is create a gratitude journal, because I liked what Jeremy was saying earlier about, focus on the things that are going well, because when we're in that sense of overwhelm or stress, it's very easy to think about what has not happened. So creating a gratitude practice, even if some days it is, I tied my shoelaces today, it doesn't matter what's in the journal. What matters is we're wiring up that more positive side of the brain to counteract the negativity bias that is so active on a normal day, never mind when we're under stress. So I maybe will leave you with those 2.
Okay, perfect. Jeremy, anything to add?
I think there's an S-curve. Life goes through an S-curve, and it's helping people to see where they are on the S-curve, and then can they take another step through it and not cut it off, not to grow up, if you like, but rather, okay, so I'm feeling hopeless enough. Okay, so let's just see what would take you to feel a little bit more hopeful. For example, I think for me, by the way, very, very practically, if you drink alcohol, stop drinking. Alcohol has a significant impact on sleep. And so I might say to my client, what do you drink? Stop it. Just stop it. Just for a week or a month. Stop having a drink and just see what happens. And then prioritize sleep. I know these are very pragmatic things, but alcohol gets in the way of your sleep. And sleep is the most important thing often. And then I think you're absolutely right, Karen. Find a friend. Get somebody who's prepared to you can download on, go for a walk with, who you have to commit to seeing on a regular basis. And that's where coaching comes in as well. We can often just provide that loving company while people work on themselves, is how I would describe it. It fits in with this.
Just to finish up, thank you both for all of that. But the key thing is, I always remember someone said, well, in 25 years' time, none of this will really matter, which is a longer way of saying this too will pass. Thank you both very much indeed, Jeremy and Caroline. Do remember to keep watching. Look up other podcasts on our website, which is www.azizcorp.com, and there'll be more tools and resources there. Staying human and resilient isn't a luxury, it's essential for leaders who want to thrive and create long-term impact and actually keep themselves sane. Until the next time, goodbye.
Thank you.